Welcome to Roll of the Dice, a Game Master's Guide for better role-playing. I'm Dan,
And I am Lee.
and in this episode, we're talking about world building, changing things up,
Ooh.
changing the already established world from an RPG book to something else.
Something sinister.
Always sinister.
Oh, it's
Never-
always going to be
never
evil.
happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the call to adventure. You're not just going to change things up as, oh, now this world, everyone gets free apple pie. Wow.
Well, I think that happens in My Little Pony, but,
My little pony, my little pony.
Yeah, we're going to talk about what kind of changes do you want to make in the book. So if you have an established setting and you don't like something like the time period that the book is taking place, or it doesn't have magic and you want to add magic or something, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, really, not necessarily big changes, but some changes to the book, because this is your game and you want to make it your own. You have some adventure idea, and in the book it says, well, over here, this is what's going on. And you're like, well, I kind of want to do my own thing. And the answer is, yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want. Go for it.
That's the point of the game.
That's the point of the game. Make it your own. And that's always fun. I've done that a couple of times where I didn't feel like knowing all the information about a certain area or circumstance, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to make this my own. What I mean is I was running a Wheel of Time adventure, and when I was doing this, I was kind of going along the same timeline as the books, the first couple of books, where they're alongside with the heroes, Rand and Perrin and Matt. But what happened was I realized very quickly that the characters didn't matter in this world because they weren't the heroes of the story. The other three were the heroes. So I stopped that really quickly and decided I'm just going to have the player characters go somewhere else and do their own thing, and they need to become important themselves. And so what I did was I had something bad happen to the main character of the world, Rand, and now the heroes were the ones that had to be doing something.
Yeah, it's hard to bring in a major NPC to a campaign, because then sometimes, especially from books, everything happens to them, and you're just following along. And I think I remember you running that game.
And at first it's like, oh, it'll be fun. You'll be elbow to elbow with the heroes of the book. Then it's, well, actually, that's not interesting because, yeah, your characters aren't the heroes, so what's the point? So I had you go down somewhere else, and I think I hinted that something bad happened to Rand, and that he's now lost, the main character. So now it's up to the lesser cast, I guess, to step in and be the heroes of the world. And unfortunately,
the understudies need to step up.
You guys got to step up. The main is out.
I think and at the time, I believe we were running a lot of games where we would actually interact with a lot of major, because I think we ran Robotech, and the same thing would happen. We'd be on a ship, and there would be Max and Rick and them on the ship, and almost the same situations would happen. We'd be in a dogfight, and you'd be like, "Oh, there's Max taking out everyone." Well, you just have this main fight with this bad guy, but he's doing all this stuff over here, and eventually you just kind of have to pull them away from those major NPCs and let them find their own path and their own adventure. And
it's fun
to follow along the path of the other characters.
It's fun to interact with cool NPCs like that everyone knows, but they can't be the main focus of the story. You gotta just have them come in, do something, and then go away, or your characters go away somewhere else. And in that Wheel of Time setting I know I had you guys go somewhere else, but we never actually got to really get into the game, which is kind of disappointing. Because then I had this whole idea of, all right, now we're no longer going to be tagging along with the major heroes. You're going to become the heroes. And I think we did 2 or 3 sessions, and then it was done, which happens.
Was sad. It was fun.
Well, that's good.
We had fun while it lasted.
And I did this other thing too with Deadlands, Hell on Earth, where I decided you're going to be in an alternate Earth, where it's actually, instead of this one thing happening, it's now a completely different timeline and different world. And so that way it throws the people playing through, they don't know what's going to happen next. It adds a sense of mystery, because maybe those people have read all the books and they know all the information. And sometimes it's hard to role play that their characters don't know, like what monster is in this area. And so if you make your own alternate reality, is you can add and change whatever you want and keep things exciting for people.
That's kind of an interesting note to say to someone who is trying to roleplay a game for someone who knows everything about the world more than you, and you say, okay, this is and alternate reality, we're changing a couple of things here. So everything you know
You
is
don't
no
know.
longer valid.
Mm-hmm.
We have to reestablish what the player characters know and reestablish this world to be different.
In this new alternate world, everyone has beards, has goatees, because now they're evil.
Very long beards, except for dwarves. They're all shaven.
Oh my! What
It's
crazy mirror world is this?
a huge change. I always like to look at what is going to be the same in this adventure. You have everything from the book.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to keep the same? I mean, I'm going to keep maybe the game system, the rules the same.
Yeah.
These characters are the same, or these places are the same, but now what is different? What is going to be affected by the change you want to make by adding magic to this world? What does that change?
Yeah. That's a really good idea, because how big do you want to do this? I would say in a completely alternate, different Earth or different world or universe, or like you said, just adding a little bit of magic. So are you adding magic to a modern campaign? Are you getting rid of magic, maybe from a fantasy world? So now something has happened where it's blocked that magic and the players need to figure that out. What's your change in the world? And also, how will it affect the world? So let's just say we're playing a modern adventure game. Maybe it was a horror game in modern times. And now all of a sudden, your heroes who didn't before, they were just regular people. Now something's happening to them and they start getting magical powers. How does that affect your characters, everything, really? How does magic change the world? Or is it just only a handful of people now have magic powers that they didn't have before? It's kind of still kept secret in the world. It all depends on how you do that. If you keep it small like that, you can still keep that in a secret. But if it's something big, now you have to think about, is the government going to get involved in all this? Are they going to start studying the magic with science? Like, you have to start thinking how big you want to make this change in this already established world.
Will always get involved with the release of magic in a world.
Well, sure.
You always expect the government.
Always. Those men in black just come around.
A lot with changing things up. Sometimes you go into a part of the world that the books don't talk about. I wanted to play an adventure of Robotech, of Macross, and I wanted to go to the Robotech Masters world. I wanted to go explore the Invid world, but we never really got that in the game books.
Yeah, it was just something that was just mentioned in a far off area.
Yeah, and I wanted people to go there to see that, because it's like, okay, Invid come to Earth, they destroy it, they take it over, but what about the worlds that they've already left, and created mutation pits and things like that. So I had to try to create a world that my player characters were going to visit that was never explained in the books. I was like, okay, this is a Robotech Masters world. They built the race, the Zentradi, to fight the Invid, apparently. In some aspects.
Well, in the Robotech's world, yeah, that's true. In Macross, it's another thing, but
depends which world you're building.
Yes.
And so I wanted them to build the Zentradi in order to fight the Invid, but of course they lost their hometown or their home world. So I wanted to build that and have the players go out earlier into space before the Zentradi attacked Earth. So they were going to be in space on a colonization mission when they find out Earth was attacked and killed. And then they have to decide, what would they do? They can't go back to Earth. And they find these planets that were already taken over by Invid and just create a different world around that. But none of that was in the book. So I had to, trying to plan that was, building a world that's still within a campaign world, but I have no information, and it was very hard to do.
Yeah. Definitely hard.
I wish I could give you tips, but we never played. So
Yeah, you don't have any other things to say. But yeah, you have an idea because you know from the books, from the novels or whatever, what the Robotech Masters do. So that gives you an idea of like, okay, well, I'm going to be building this world a certain way. And so you get ideas that way too. And you'd also change the timeline of the main story, correct? So now we're seeing it from a different viewpoint, because normally in the Robotech / Macross world is you're going to be playing after Earth has been attacked or during the attack. You're not seeing it. Yeah, you're not seeing it from that time period. You're seeing it from earlier, where humans have gone into space before this point.
Yeah, the Zentradi attack happens later after we've already created some ships and tried to colonize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it took place in an alternate timeline further in the future, as if something didn't, like an event didn't happen in the past
Mm-hmm.
until later. So from that point that I'm changing, so everything was the same. The alien ship crash lands on Earth. They start building it. They release a ship into space, but instead of getting attacked, then they start building more ships, and they release 3 ships into space. They go try to colonize, and then the Zentradi attack happens. And so from that point that I changed, I have to start changing the whole world. You know, like what does Earth do? I mean, do they start building a defensive system earlier? Do they not? What happens to those first 2 ships that take off? I kind of have to start planning everything from that point.
Yeah, the bigger the change for whatever you do will affect everything else. And a really good example that maybe more people will know about is the Fallout series. So everything takes place normally until we get to, I believe, World War II, and the transistor was not invented. And so after that point, the rest of that timeline of our Earth goes off in a different direction, and now it's more vacuum tubes, and the culture of the 50s continues on, veers off into that direction. So that's, now you have to think about all that. One thing was changed up, everything was cool up to that point. One thing was changed. Now, how does that affect everything else after that?
And one thing I was going to, I think, mention that we talk about this a lot in screenwriting, is like set building is what they call it. And when you're writing a script, and I'm forgetting the term, if it's just what set piece do you have in the script? And sometimes you get feedback and they say you need more set pieces. And you're like, what does that mean? What the hell does set piece mean?
What does that mean?
It basically means, like, if you said the transistor wasn't built in World War II, and you're going off into the future, and how does that affect everything? Now you have to, whenever you are talking to your characters, player characters, as far as, like, let's talk about it in the role-playing world, and they walk into a room, and now you have to say, okay, you see vacuum tubes on the wall everywhere, or you say this big giant armor comes through the wall, and you explain it in the terms of, like, BioShock. I mean, it's got, it's huge. It's like an underwater suit. Everything kind of has to be built in the style of the world you're going for.
Yes.
So set piece kind of helps to solidify the story you're telling or the mood you're telling. So it's those little tiny pieces you throw in that help to make the world feel like the world you want it to be.
And I like changing the world up a lot, quite a bit, because sometimes you have an interesting story idea, but then you realize, oh, well, this would have happened, so my idea doesn't work. It doesn't fit what would have happened, because the main hero of the story would have taken care of that situation. Or you have an idea where I just want to change things up for fun. Like, wouldn't it be cool if... I sometimes I think about it that way. An example could be in Star Wars is, wouldn't it be cool if actually Luke went to the dark side, or he was killed? He didn't actually hit the Death Star in A New Hope, and he was actually killed by Darth Vader because Han Solo didn't come back to save him. Now we're going to roleplay that world where the Empire is so much stronger now, and depending on what you want to do is, do you want to start the rebellion up again? And now you're thinking of alternate world is, who is left in this world from the heroes? Is Leia alive? Is she dead? Is Han? And have they changed as well? Is Han Solo now even more grumpy and distraught because he didn't go back to save his new friends? He's no longer a diamond in the rough. He actually now is maybe he's a drunkard now. So you have to think of all these different things.
I think the world can also change depending on, like, especially for the GM, how you're going to run it, depending on which characters the player characters play. Because they could be on the light side rebellions and be like, all right, do we build the rebellion world and try to get them to find Han Solo and bring him back out of his stupor, out of his, like, depression stupor?
Yeah.
Or are they playing on the Emperor side, trying to find Han Solo in order to arrest him and kill him, or hire him if now he's actually a really bad smuggler,
or he'd be like a bounty hunter or whatever you want to do. Think big like that. Like, I really like where you're completely changing things up, because that way it surprises your player characters. Is they were expecting one thing, and now I'm completely changing up. That way you can't use your knowledge of what's going on and kind of, in a way, metagame / cheat to do things. But that's an enormous thing to do and can be really difficult. So I like, starting small if you're really going to change something. Maybe just changing one thing. But again, that one thing might trickle out, and now you have to change your set pieces to know how it all fits together in your new world that you've created.
And don't be shy in changing things. You can change things whenever you want. The books aren't set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
Some players may want it to be at times,
Yeah.
but you can change and create your world however you want in any way you want, however you think it's going to be fun to play.
Even as simple as changing a monster's stats. They know that they fight
Yeah.
this monster and has a weakness, and you know that they know, and you change it. You add maybe cyborg stuff to this monster, or it has extra magical powers. Like, that's nothing major, but now you've changed this monster, and you're changing things up, so making it more interesting for them.
And that can throw the player characters for a loop, because they could be like, I've been fighting this monster for a
Yep.
long time. We just have to throw a fireball at it.
No
and we'll be
problem.
done. And you throw a fireball,
Nothing
the skin
happens.
melts off, and you see this metal skeleton
there you
structure
go.
underneath. Now you're like, crap, it's a mechanical Wendigo.
Dun,
And
dun,
I don't know what to
dun,
do
dun.
now, because it worked last time, and now the player characters have something to play off of in the game, as well as it makes it more exciting as something changes or something becomes harder for them.
Yeah.
Than it was before.
Changing it up, as in adding a new planet. I know you gave that example for Robotech. I'm going to add a brand new planet that wasn't in this world before, in this universe, in this campaign setting before. Yeah, whether it be Star Trek or Star Wars, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to have a whole planet full of Wookiees, and they actually do live with Ewoks together. Whatever. And then you can explore that together. Like, how did this happen? This is unusual. Really, your imagination is endless when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, really explore it and what you want to say and have fun with it.
And I think if you're talking about planets, I don't think you have to like star map everything out. You could just say,
No.
you travel to this planet randomly or over in this area, and I'm not going to say where it is in this map. I'm just going to say it,
it's over here,
somewhere within this vicinity, and you can travel there, create the world, and never go back and visit again if you don't want.
Yep.
But it's just, poof, it's there, poof, it's gone.
Gone. Yeah, for whatever you want to do. You're in charge, and you know what you're trying to do. You're just trying to have fun.
Take charge.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure those player characters know their spot.
Mm-hmm. But another thing is, they need to know their spot. Know their place in this world. Yep. So now that we're changing things in this book setting that we're using, the system that we're using, is there a different system that might work better now for what I've done? An example could be we're playing Dungeons & Dragons. We're using the 5th edition system, but now I've added a lot more horror into this world that D&D really doesn't have. They have a couple rules for fear, but now, I really want to get into like a survival horror feeling. And there may or may not be some rules that you want to add. You can homebrew it. I'm sure there's examples online of how to add that into the system. Or you might want to think of using a different system that will use horror better, like Deadlands.
I can't think of what are the games. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head whether games use horror systems. I'm at a loss right now. I know there are.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of them. You have Call of Cthulhu. You have I can't think of.
I'm trying to remember the game where you play kids, and if you get to
Tiny. Hold on a second. I think it's called Little Horrors, what you're talking about. The Vampire System, or Hunter, or Vampire Masquerade. Those are other systems. But yeah, you can look around for other things, or just adding in homebrew rules to spice up your already existing system that you're using. Yeah.
You might just have them roll on a horror system and say, if you fail, your spirit check, your horror system, horror roll, your horror meter goes up.
Or whatever, your fear. Yeah, it's constant. But that's an example of horror. If you want to do more, maybe you're just doing hack and slash, but now you want to have a more adventure feel, more of a lighthearted feel, and you need to go to another system. So, horror was just one example, but it's whatever feeling you want to do. There's different systems out there that can convey it better than others. Yeah, more of
I tried to take the Palladium system and try to get Savage Worlds instead, kind of simplify things.
Yeah, because Palladium is garbage. Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize to everyone that likes Palladium. It is a completely broken system, and I can't stand it. But because it hasn't been fixed in decades.
Too many people who are jet pilots had too many attacks.
I hate Palladium so much.
I'll take martial arts, and now I get an extra attack or two or three.
What? Yeah.
What?
It's a broken system because they haven't fixed it. But that's a different subject I don't want to get into. I'm sorry if I heard Palladium and white rage went into my eyes. And you can email and ask me why I hate Palladium, and I'll talk to you personally how much I hate Palladium. I apologize. Sorry, Dan.
No, sorry. I was trying to add like we mentioned earlier. I was trying to add magic to the world in a way because Robotech people saying that they affect people more on a psychological level than really magically. In Macross they kind of started getting into it. Like music had some kind of power to it. So I'm like, well, how can I develop this system to have a magical aspect to it that I like?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I'd have to leave the Palladium rule system to get the magic that I wanted into the stories that I wanted to tell.
Sure.
So either I'd have to change it to Savage Worlds or maybe even going to D&D into their kind of system. But
Sure. And that's
I just, I just had to change it somehow.
And that's a ton of work, transferring over existing players to another setting, and you have to transfer their stats to a different one. That's really challenging.
Yeah, I never got there.
Well, there you go.
I didn't get time to figure it out.
Yeah. It's a ton of work. And sometimes, do I just add a little extra rule here, or do I have to do a complete different change overhaul of what I want to do? And I've done that.
I had to figure out the whole ship system and how much damage do they take, the mega damage versus normal damage.
All these things you got to think about.
It was like too much stuff to figure out. And it just kind of stopped.
Changing things up, and then something that's already established, it can be really hard, but I really enjoy doing it, from something very minor to a complete change over of reality.
A lot of fun, a lot of work, but worth it.
Worth it. So that was world building, changing things up. If you want to get a hold of us, you can do so on our newly formed website called rollofthedice.com. That's ROLE of the dice.com. I don't know why I'm using that voice, but I am.
.com.
This is your one-stop shopping. This is your one-stop to get all the info you need on this podcast. You can watch some episodes, listen to some episodes there, send us some email questions. Just make it easier and just go to this one place.
Maybe shopping will come later.
Ooh, merchandising. That's where the money is.
Merchandising.
Yeah, George Lucas taught me all about that.
In our next episode of, I guess we're continuing on in world building.
More world building.
We'll talk about creating your own world. So I guess we'll kind of expand on what we did as if there was no book for what you wanted to do.
You're going to use just that system that you want to use, but you're going to create everything else that's not even in the book. Why? Why would you do such a thing? You're a madman. A madman!
I think we're all mad.
We're all mad down here, or something.
Remember, keep shaking those dice,
and may roll be true.